President Ho Chi Minh was known as a prolific writer, gaining recognition as a UNESCO culture figure, but few have attempted to get to know the human side of this great leader. However, all these has changed following the publication of Dr. Nguyen Trang, a lecturer at the University of Toronto's 15 Years Masterpiece. After 15 years studying the life of Ho Chi Minh, Dr. Nguyen published her Ho Chi Minh, The Heart and Mind of a Patriot. Trang focused on the late president's early years, his parents, brother and sister, and the historical background that had motivated him to go abroad to seek ways to save the nation. She also delved into the late president's views on such issues as equality among peoples and gender equality. Trang said, the book was her way of expressing her great respect for the man. It is about her love for the nation and her desire to return to her origins, and it calls for greater unity amongst the Vietnamese people.
Hello there, you're watching Talk Vietnam. Dr. Nguyen Trang is an overseas Vietnamese living in Canada. She has become the first overseas Vietnamese to have written and also published abroad a book about late President Ho Chi Minh. Now, it's our honor to have her in our studio today for her to talk about her journey in coming to write the book and also her efforts in bridging her home country here in Vietnam and also her current host country, Canada. Thank you very much, Dr. Nguyen Trang, for coming to our studio today.
Thank you, Thuy.
Thank you. So let's start now with your book. The book is entitled Ho Chi Minh, The Heart and Mind of a Patriot. Can you tell us a little bit about the idea behind this title?
I truly believe that Ho Chi Minh was one of the greatest, if not the greatest, patriot of Vietnam. And the approach that I use in researching this great leader is to look at him from the human perspective. And I came to realize that most books in the West, as I could see in Canada, do not have a human perspective on Ho Chi Minh. And I believe that if we only look at Ho Chi Minh in terms of his talent, his achievement, his success, without looking at his heart, then we do not have a comprehensive, complete understanding of this great leader of the country of Vietnam. And therefore, I decided to do research on his early years, about his family, his parents, his brother and sister, and also to research on the state of Vietnam at the time that he was born, how Vietnam was invaded by the French, and how the Vietnamese was suffering from the harsh conditions under colonial rule. Then we can understand the passion that he had for his people, and how he left the country in search for a way to save his people.
So how long did it take for you to compile this research and also write this book?
It took me about 15 years to study theories, economic theories, political theories, and I combined with other disciplines such as sociology, cultural studies, gender studies, and I could always find the relevance of these studies with the Ho Chi Minh thought. And for the last 6 months, the time that I actually wrote the book was about 6 months.
6 months.
Yes, and I wrote the English version first.
Right.
And then after that, I translated into Vietnamese myself.
Now, you talked about how Ho Chi Minh, his human side, has a very particular interest for you in learning about his ideas about equality and other stuff among the same lines. So for you, on a personal level, what was it in his figure, in his personal life that interested you or impressed you the most?
Well, what impressed me the most, and it has impressed me for a very long time, was his passion, his determination, his strong conviction for justice, for equality, and just to help the most disadvantaged people in this world. He would do whatever it takes to just to help his people to gain independence, to have freedom. And I believe that what touched me the most would be his statement that he had a wish, a burning wish, that all Vietnamese would have enough to eat, would have enough clothes, and has the opportunities to study and to be happy. And to me, this was a very noble purpose of his life, and it is still relevant today.
So now you talked about your research. Can you tell us a little bit about how many books you had to go through? I mean, you obviously spent, you said, 15 years doing this. Tell us a little bit about this process.
Well, for the 15 years that I studied and researched on different disciplines, I could not count how many books. I would say thousands. But for specifically for materials on Ho Chi Minh, I would say I consulted more than 100 books, plus many other journal articles about him. And I borrowed from the library of the University of Toronto about 60 books on Ho Chi Minh. And I actually had an accident when I carried these books home. I was very enthusiastic after I compiled the
60 books.
Yes, and I had an accident. I hit my head on the shelf, and it was quite an accident. I had a bump actually, and it was very memorable.
In terms of coming here to Vietnam, you mentioned that you had to read a lot of books back in Toronto, but did you go to Vietnam to collect any materials?
Yes, definitely. I read about Ho Chi Minh when I was a little girl, growing up in Vietnam, and also since I came back to work in Vietnam in 1996, every time I went back to Vietnam, I always went to bookstores and again bought many books and took them home. I consulted a lot of books on Ho Chi Minh written in Vietnam. I also talked to many researchers in Vietnam about the perspectives on Ho Chi Minh, just about anything that I could learn from them about Ho Chi Minh. So over time, I accumulated a lot of books and a lot of comments from many researchers on Ho Chi Minh from both sides.
Right. In terms of coming here to Vietnam, I mean, a lot of kind of great places associated with Ho Chi Minh, like the Ho Chi Minh Mausoleum here in Hanoi, and also his hometown back in Nguyen. Were you able to visit some of those places?
Oh yes, I have visited the Ho Chi Minh Mausoleum a few times in the 1990s, and also recently. I went to his homeland in Nguyen province in 2000 when I did a research there for 3 months.
What were some of your kind of impressions?
I learned how simple a person he was, a very simple person with great passion and determination. You really have to see the place that he lived and the houses he lived in, and also you would have to see all the difficulties that he had to overcome and the achievements that he was able to make in his lifetime, to see that he was a great leader of Vietnam.
We'll go to a clip now. After being published in Canada and also receiving a warm reception from the Vietnamese community and also locals living in Canada, the book Ho Chi Minh, The Heart and Mind of a Patriot by Dr. Dai Trang has just been published for Vietnamese audiences, and we'll have a look at the launching ceremony.
Dai Trang published Ho Chi Minh, The Heart and Mind of a Patriot back in May 2010 to mark the 120th birthday of the late president. 3 months later in Hanoi, she launched the Vietnamese edition of her book. Among the first readers of her book were 2 Vietnamese diplomats who have known her since their time stationed in Canada.
Cuốn sách của Đại Trang là một trong những cái thể hiện cái tình cảm là một cái rất là có ý nghĩa, bởi vì là theo tôi hiểu thì Trang là một nữ tác giả của cái thế hệ trẻ như các đại biểu vừa nói, cũng là có lẽ là duy nhất ở nước ngoài viết về bác và đánh giá về bác với những cái góc nhìn khác nhau. Tức là bác là một vĩ nhân thì rất nhiều người viết rồi, nhưng mà bác là một con người, là đánh giá về cái tâm và cái tài của bác, và nhìn nhận từ một con người của cái thế hệ sinh sau, không phải trải qua cuộc chiến tranh và lại sống ở nước ngoài rất lâu, và cũng nhận được những cái đào tạo và giáo dục của phương Tây, và lại vẫn có một cái tâm huyết với đất nước, thì tôi nghĩ là cái đó là một cái rất có ý nghĩa.
Với cách tiếp cận mới đó thì Đại Trang đã làm cho cái hình ảnh của bác nó không chỉ là gần gũi với nhân dân Việt Nam mà gần gũi với con người nói chung, và cái gần gũi của bác đối với con người thể hiện trong cái quyển sách của Đại Trang đó. Có thể nó thấy bác là không chỉ bác thực sự là nhân vĩ nhân, bác thực sự là một vĩ nhân văn hóa mà UNESCO người ta đã công nhận. Cái thành tựu cái này nó làm thêm một cái tiếng chuông nữa, một cái tiếng nói nữa, thấy rõ rằng là Hồ Chí Minh thực sự là một con người vĩ đại, không chỉ vĩ đại của dân tộc ta mà cũng là một con người vĩ đại của nhân loại. Bởi vì thực sự cái tâm của bác là cái tâm cho tất cả những con người trên thế đất, chứ không chỉ dân tộc Việt Nam.
Dr. Dai Trang said it took her half a year to write the book, but before that, she had to spend 15 years reading thousands of books and studying a range of disciplines to gain a comprehensive understanding of President Ho Chi Minh. She wrote the English version first and then translated it into Vietnamese herself. Trang chose the National Political Publishing House as her Vietnamese publisher.
Now, going to kind of your readers and your audiences in Canada, both Vietnamese and Canadian, what are some of the things they think, or what are some of the thoughts they have on your book?
Yes, I was able to have 4 book launch events in Canada. Two in Toronto, one in Ottawa, and one in Montreal.
That one's in Montreal,
yes,
right?
that is the one in Montreal.
Awesome.
Yes. In Toronto, I had one book launch event at the University of Toronto in Scarborough. And the students really appreciate the book. They said that they learned a great deal about Ho Chi Minh that they didn't know before. And we also had another book launch event in Toronto where I invited Canadian politicians. We have MP, Member of Parliament Brian Wilford. We have the former Minister of Citizenship of Ontario, Bob Wong.
Wow.
And we had many Canadian friends and Vietnamese friends, and we had really good discussion on the human perspective of Ho Chi Minh. And then we also had another book launch event in Ottawa, where I received support from the embassy,
of Vietnam.
They participated in the event. And then we also had another event in Montreal. Again, we had great discussion on the life and the cause of Ho Chi Minh for national independence for Vietnam.
Right. Now, for that audience, that particular audience of both Vietnamese and Canadian in Canada, Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, what were some of their major concerns or major questions concerning your book?
Well, I think that the question that I got the most would be, what would be your motivation in writing this book?
Exactly.
Again, I just feel that I should say what is right. For me, it's a moral obligation. As a researcher, then it's an ethical obligation. That if I see there's a side of Ho Chi Minh that people need to know, then I should say it.
Great.
Dr. Dai Chang's book has received lots of praise from Canadian readers. Bob Wong, former Ontario Minister of Citizenship Rights. In her book, Professor Julie Dai Chang Nguyen traces the life journey of Ho Chi Minh from his youth to that of a revolutionary leader and patriot. Julie Nguyen offers insightful historical and cultural perspectives of a person who has lived in both Vietnam and in the West. Professor Andre Lalibert from University of Ottawa said, "This volume offers an original and fresh account of Ho Chi Minh's contribution to the history of Vietnam, a world leader who has tremendous appeal among youth all over the world during the turbulent era of decolonization in his lifetime. He also emerges in this book as a compassionate human being."
Trang wanted to look at perspectives of Ho Chi Minh, both from a Western background, but also from a Vietnamese background. And this book, which was launched in May of 2010, gives us some unusual perspectives about the patriot, about the fact that Ho Chi Minh really was a nationalist. He started out very clearly wanting to emulate Abraham Lincoln in the United States, the whole issue of the Declaration of Independence, the American Revolution, really wanting to put forward a Vietnamese face, a Vietnamese view of the world in which, after years of French colonialism, that Vietnam would take its rightful place on the world stage. This book looks at his struggles, both in terms of being in Vietnam and being an exile in Paris. It really shows the human side of Uncle Ho. And there, from that standpoint, this book is very unique because it looks at her background was looking at Western writings, Vietnamese writings. It really comes across her patriotism, her sense of Ho Chi Minh.
In the book, I mean, you have said you took a lot of sources from both the Western outsider point of view and from here in Vietnam researchers, and also in your trips to local parts of Vietnam to learn about Ho Chi Minh. In terms of comparison, do you see differences, similarities in terms of the different views, perspectives on Ho Chi Minh?
I find that Western books tend to look at Ho Chi Minh's political activities, and therefore I think that their view is not complete. On the other hand, I find that the Vietnamese sources talk a lot about his life and his contribution to the country, but the information might not be presented in a systematic way, and therefore I decided that if I could present a book that can close that gap, then it could be helpful to many researchers who are doing research on Ho Chi Minh.
In your book, you talk about kind of Ho Chi Minh's thought on gender equality, and I know that from reading it, gender equality is a big part of your book. So can you talk a little bit about that part? And I know that you're also kind of focusing on gender equality in your international development studies.
Yes. Well, I believe that gender equality is very important for national development. It is not just to bring about equality for everyone in the country, but also to build human capital for the country. According to Ho Chi Minh, when women participated in the revolution, it is not just to liberate the country, but also to liberate themselves. And Vietnamese revolution would not be successful without the participation of women. And according to Ho Chi Minh, equality doesn't mean identical treatment. That doesn't mean that it's 50-50, but it means fair treatment. It means equal opportunities for everyone. And the approach that Ho Chi Minh was able to identify and use for Vietnam was the socialist feminist approach to tackle patriarchy, to tackle capitalism because of the exploitation of women. And therefore, I strongly believe that this socialist feminist approach is still very much relevant in today's Vietnam. Ho Chi Minh was able to identify that the road to gender equality would be difficult because of three reasons. One is that the mentality of looking up to men and looking down on women has been in Vietnam for thousands of years. So it's very difficult to overcome. And secondly, it has entrenched in each person mentality and each family. And third, we could not use arms to fight this inequality. And so it's still a challenge, not just for Vietnam, but also for many other developing and developed countries in the world.
Talking about your plan to write another book, I understand that you're in your trip here in Vietnam this time in Hanoi. Dr. Nguyen Trang came to talk with one of the veteran researchers on Ho Chi Minh. So we'll have a look at her visit.
Dr. Dai Trang has never met Mr. Nguyen Huy Hoan before. At the recommendation of a friend, Trang came to seek advice on her second book about President Ho Chi Minh. The former deputy director of the Ho Chi Minh Museum has nearly 40 years spent researching the great leader of the nation.
Cháu cũng có ý định là trong tương lai gần sắp tới đây sẽ tiếp tục nghiên cứu sâu hơn về Chủ tịch Hồ Chí Minh, và đồng thời cháu cũng có một cái sự quan tâm về cái đề tài là tư tưởng Hồ Chí Minh trong bối cảnh phát triển đất nước hiện nay.
Năm 62 bác đã từng đề xuất ra một ý kiến là quản lý một đất nước cũng như quản lý một doanh nghiệp phải có lãi. Cái gì ra, cái gì vào, việc gì cần làm ngay, việc gì cần chờ hoãn hay bỏ, tất cả đều phải tính toán cẩn thận. Những vấn đề kinh tế như thế là bác nói rất là sớm. Vấn đề đầu tư nhá, vấn đề đầu tư của nước ngoài ngay từ năm 1954 hòa bình lập lại, bác đã phát biểu chúng tôi hoan nghênh đầu tư của nước ngoài.
The veteran researcher encouraged Trang to write her second book about President Ho Chi Minh as a follow-up.
Đất còn rộng lắm. Đấy, chúng ta còn phải nghiên cứu rất nhiều. Nghiên cứu để vận dụng cho đất nước. Và trong chừng mực nào đó mà tôi thấy cái cuốn sách của chị cũng đề cập đến, tức cuốn này không phải chỉ có giá trị đối với Việt Nam mà còn có ý nghĩa đối với một số nước trên thế giới mà hoàn cảnh như Việt Nam thì tôi rất tán thành. Gần đây nhiều nguyên thủ quốc gia đến Việt Nam thì đều ca ngợi rằng chúng tôi học tập cái mô hình và cái tấm gương của Việt Nam, tấm gương đổi mới, tấm gương tìm con đường đi thích hợp cho đất nước mình để cho nhân dân là chóng được ấm no sung sướng. Cái đó đúng lắm.
Mr. Nguyen met President Ho Chi Minh personally 6 times. The president himself assigned Nguyen, then a teacher of Chinese, to teach Vietnamese to a group of Korean and Chinese students from 1965 to 1967. Nguyen retired 30 years ago. Since then, he has still been invited to work at the museum twice a week to transcribe President Ho Chi Minh's handwritten Chinese manuscripts.
So we understand that in this trip, as we just saw in the clip, you came to see Mr. Nguyen, who is a veteran researcher on President Ho Chi Minh. What were some of the things, some of the thoughts that you gathered from this visit?
Well, Mr. Nguyen is still very, very much hardworking, and he's just great in his work on Ho Chi Minh, and I was so impressed with his comments on the book. For example, he commented on my approach, my new approach to doing research on Ho Chi Minh, and he said that it was absolutely right on. This is what we needed in understanding better Ho Chi Minh, and also to understand his thought and how it is important for Vietnam today. And also he said that I was right on when I discussed the Ho Chi Minh thought, that it is not just relevant for Vietnam, but for other developing countries as well.
Now, just for our audience here and also at home, because the Ho Chi Minh Thought will be your main focus for your second book, we'll go over what the Ho Chi Minh Thought is. So can you tell us what is the Ho Chi Minh Thought and how would you define it?
Yes. Well, to me, the Ho Chi Minh Thought represents a solution for developing countries, small countries, to gain independence from the West. So in the past, these countries needed to gain independence to fight against colonialism. And nowadays, with the end of colonialism, these countries still need to fight in the political and economic international system. And the Ho Chi Minh Thought offers the following components. The first one would be to have a conviction, a strong conviction that all countries in this world, all peoples are equal. And therefore, the superpowers, the West, cannot influence other countries for their purposes. And secondly, we need to see the world through the eyes of the most disadvantaged groups. And therefore, we understand how the superpowers can really take advantage of the disadvantage. And then from there, thirdly, we would need to come up with solutions. We would need to just to mobilize all the resources that you have, whether it's economically, politically, culturally. You just need to mobilize what you have in order to protect your people, to protect your national interests.
Now, it's just not through writing books about Ho Chi Minh that Dr. Nguyen Trang has been able to connect with Vietnam. She has also been quite a figure in bridging the commercial and also educational exchanges between Canada and Vietnam. So we'll have a look at how she's doing this.
Today, Dr. Nguyen Trang met with Vice President of the Vietnam Chamber of Commerce, VCCI, Phạm Gia Túc, to discuss how to establish a working relationship. It is part of efforts aimed at fostering trade ties between Vietnam and Canada.
Chúng tôi đánh giá rất cao cái sáng kiến của chị Trang cũng như các chị người Việt Nam đang kinh doanh tại Canada về mong muốn thành lập phòng thương mại Việt Nam Canada tại Toronto. Phòng thương mại người Việt Nam sẽ có hợp tác chặt chẽ với phòng thương mại Canada Việt Nam để cung cấp thông tin, cung cấp về những dự án cụ thể, về những cái mong muốn kinh doanh của các doanh nghiệp Việt Nam, kể cả cung cấp thông tin về môi trường đầu tư kinh doanh vân vân, để hỗ trợ các cái doanh nghiệp Canada cũng như doanh nghiệp Việt Nam có thêm thông tin để có thể hiểu biết hơn thị trường Canada, hiểu biết hơn đối tác, có nhiều cái đối tác để thiết lập cơ hội kinh doanh.
For Trang, the discussion revealed to her what should be done first to meet that end.
After talking to Mr. Tu, who is the Vice President of VCCI, I understand better about the challenges as well as the opportunities of trade potential between Vietnam and Canada. For example, it is not easy to get visa to enter Canada for a trade mission, for example. And so for this, I will work more closely with the Canadian side to facilitate this visa process so that more and more Vietnamese entrepreneurs can obtain visa to go to Canada to learn and explore the Canadian market.
Now, going away from your efforts in writing a book about Ho Chi Minh, you've also been quite a figure in trying to bridge the relations between Canada and Vietnam in terms of trade relations. So can you tell us a little bit about your activity in this field?
For the last few years, I have been working with many trade organizations in Vietnam and in Canada, and trying to connect them. We have founded the Canada-Vietnam Chamber of Commerce, and we have many plans to connect the two countries together. So our plan would be to bring trade groups from Vietnam to Canada to explore the Canadian markets, and also vice versa. For example, there was a company in Vancouver. It's a clothes manufacturer. they produce silk products. They wanted to find a producer, a manufacturer in Vietnam, and so I was able to introduce them with a company in Vietnam, and then they work together, and they are happy.
And it's a good feeling that you've
yes.
been able to match makes
right.
companies and businesses that can be suitable to each other.
Yeah.
Now, going away from the trade parts, your efforts in bridging the trade relations, you're also doing a lot also in your field, education, in kind of making it possible for Vietnam and Canada to have educational exchanges. So can you tell us a little bit about this?
Yes. I always want to work on the educational sector. I could see that there's a huge need in Vietnam to explore more in terms of international education. And I find that the Canadian educational system is excellent. And I know that because I study at many universities in Canada, and also I've been teaching at both college and university levels, and I am working on joint programs, so students can study in Vietnam and then after that in Canada. I also have activities to support international students after they arrive in Canada. And so that's what I've been doing to support students and also to connect Canadian schools and Vietnamese schools together.
I believe you're also in a plan to found a Vietnam Center in Toronto, is that it?
Yes, so this is a center for commerce, for education, for culture, and I believe that if we can have a Vietnamese center or Vietnam house right in Toronto, then that would be a great attraction, and also it could help bridge the two countries, Vietnam and Canada, in many aspects, trade, education, and also cultural exchange.
Wow, that would be wonderful. Now, going away from your work, away from this book that you're writing and to your personal life, how long have you lived in Canada?
I've lived in Canada for more than 20 years.
20 years.
But I spent a great deal of my time in many other countries when I did my research as well. But it's about 20 years.
Right.
Yes.
You mentioned that you came back in 1996. Is that right?
Yes.
Was that for studies or research?
Well, I came back right after I completed my master's in economics, and I started working for the Center for Southeast Asia Research at the University of British Columbia, and it was for work, developmental work. So it was a great experience coming back for the first time to see all the changes and to be very enthusiastic about my development work for the University of British Columbia, and then later on for the United Nations.
So over the years, since 1996, your first visit in Vietnam to now, what do you think of Vietnam today?
Well, there's have been a lot of changes, and I love these changes. I could see that the living standards is a lot higher, and people have a lot of opportunities, economic opportunities, educational opportunities to advance themselves. So it is very encouraging. It's a good thing to see, and people are happier. And so it's been great every time I come back to Vietnam.
Wonderful. Now, going back to your life in Toronto, can you tell us a little bit about your life there, your work, what you're doing?
My main job is teaching. So I teach almost every day during the week. I teach at the Department of Humanities at the University of Toronto, Scarborough. I also teach international business at Centennial College.
Well, it seems like you have a quite busy schedule, and that it's wonderful that you can incorporate Vietnam into all that you're teaching to your students. Are a lot of your students interested in subjects about Vietnam?
Well, I often use Vietnam as a case study,
right?
And I encourage my students to compare with Vietnam with the country, and they can analyze their own countries using this case study.
Now, back in the community where you're living in Toronto, what about the Vietnamese community there? What are they like? Are there any stories that you would like to share with our audience about the Vietnamese community living in Toronto?
In Toronto, there are more than 40,000 Vietnamese in the city. Overall in Canada, there are about 200,000 Vietnamese. Well, in Toronto, the Vietnamese community is very active in their work. They're very hardworking, and also very active in community activities. They do charity work, support each other. So it has been great to be part of this Vietnamese community in Toronto.
It's wonderful work that you're doing. I mean, good luck on your second book, and also on your efforts in trying to bridge the communities in terms of business, education, the relations between Canada and Vietnam. And we hope you the best of luck in all of these endeavors.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for being on our show today.
You're welcome.
And we just had a talk with Dr. Nguyen Trang, who has become the first overseas Vietnamese to write and also publish abroad a book about the late President Ho Chi Minh. And also she's been doing a lot of work in bridging the business community as well as the educational scene in Vietnam and Canada. This is our edition of Talk Vietnam. We'll chat more next time.